Right. If not the case, let's start then. Today, I really would like to have a chance to provide some kind of thoughts and ideas about how to address generative AI and the use of those tools, but in regards, in perspective to the students. It seems that the students have a lot of resources online, maybe to know how to use those tools. When you do some Google research, you easily find that, in fact, most of those resources tend to be, in fact, toward the instructors more than the student in itself. And maybe after other resources, such as, I suppose, TikTok or other things might be giving students some other ideas, but at least online, I feel that there is kind of a distance, a gap maybe, to really guide the students on how to use potentially those generative AI tools in a correct way. And I think it's part of our job as a teacher to provide those guidance and also maybe to provide recommendation on some of the tools and adapt our teaching depending if we want to use those for which purpose. So that's kind of all of those thoughts kind of come with this idea of making this presentation of equity and access as a student perspective, mostly for the access to generative AI. So I forgot to introduce myself and tell you I'm Sylvain Masque. I'm an assistant teaching professor at UC Merced, working for the Life and Environmental Science Department. I've been at UC Merced for quite some time already. I was lecturer since 2014 and just not so long ago faculty. And before that, in fact, I had some years over there as grad student. So I had about more than 16 years at this point being living in the Central Valley. So one of the observation also that I started to build that presentation was that as teachers, we've been constantly teaching with the best technology that we've ever had. That can be the case for now, but has been the case in the past. In the 70s, when the calculators were introduced, well, the teachers have to be dealing with that. In the 2000, when internet was introduced, instructor had to deal with that. And not so long ago, about 10 years ago, where the first popular smartphones starting to be introduced, we had to deal with that. And so nowadays, the big thing is about generative AI. Who knows in 10 years what it will be? But at this point, we're dealing with this technology, which is the best currently. However, we're teaching with that technology, but in the perspective of the student, that will be probably the learning. They will do the learning with the worst technology they will ever use, because technology will be increasing over time. So that's, in fact, this sentence came from a podcast. I couldn't come back, figure out which specific podcast was the guest speaker mentioned about that. But I like this idea that, in fact, it's kind of, if I'm going back to the previous slide, it's really like a train. And we try at least to get on the train. Maybe we don't want to jump too fast, starting doing things that in some way it doesn't make sense regarding to what is our mission of teaching. But we also want to be on the train to not be stayed behind and having a harder time than to catch up. So at this point, it's pretty common that we kind of running behind technologies. We're running behind our students who tend to be very quick learner. Of course, they spend years and years of studying. Their brain is just like a sponge. They're attracted to new things. So we kind of desesperating, maybe running behind, being updated with that. And as instructor, but also as students, I think we kind of, especially with this Gen AI thing, we tend to be like in need of help from every side. And so regarding that, there is a big equity issue I found in terms of the access and the use of those kind of technology. So I'll keep general about technology at this point, but it's good to have access to all of those technology. The thing about access is one thing. We're making sure that everyone can have access to technology, but how do we know that they use it correctly? So it's really with this figure of, with all the ladder, we provide a ladder to go on the other side of the wall, but if we don't know how to use the ladder, maybe that person won't be able to use it. We need, in particular, for the evolution of technological tools, to provide some guidance to a teacher. This is one thing, and I've seen at least online a lot, and also during conferences, more and more topic about that. So it is happening. But we need also to guide our students and to equip them with those skills, because it seems that generative AI and all the other tools behind that are not going to disappear from the face of the earth. And it will be probably one of the major skills that they will have to be using in their career, or at least it will be one of the selective skills. And so we need to prepare them for that. With this issue about access and equity, I didn't make a presentation to cover any risk coming from different demographics. Living here in Central Valley, we have a pretty diverse demographic, and this is definitely part of the challenge of the demographics going against maybe the access of technology and leading into inequity issue. The image that you see was from 2018. It's not related to artificial intelligence, but just to the access of internet. And we can see that based on the type of demographic, it seems to have a strong link between minorities or the different type of demography, and also the income of people and the access to technology. So this is potentially, I mean, there is quite a lot to talk about it, but it won't be the focus of today. I'm really just considering the access of technology based on a learning aspect, on an academic aspect, and I'm not going into, I won't be looking at the cause from the background of our students and our population. Again, that could be definitely another topic to go over, but it won't be the topic of today. So speaking about topics of today, in terms of the agendas, I divided that into 4 major parts. We do have a part that will go very briefly into the contribution of generative artificial intelligence in education. Then I'll be covering a couple of things about the learning potential of using Gen AI into education. Then talking about the student access, what are the limitations maybe of students, again, not talking about their background, not talking about their ethnicity, their culture, but just in the environment of academia, what can be a break, or maybe what can be some restraint to access those technology. Then as a solution, providing some integration of free tools that are being recommended by the instructor. And finally, if we do have some time, which I hope, I will take any other question to have an open discussion about the topic and sharing experience. That's kind of the idea. So jumping into generative AI in the education, it's becoming more and more popular. And so this big infographic, I like it because it's showing more towards where we're leaning than what we are right now. Some institutions already kind of are on this stage, but it's mostly a path to go. There is application of artificial intelligence in different parts of academia. At this point, being a teacher, I'm really focused about the teaching and learning as part of the student experience. But administration is also little by little incorporating those tools to help into enrollment and retention, for example, to do the administrative task, which is also express part of the student experience. However, my focus as teacher is really to see how AI can be used for which purpose, not to make sure that, okay, it's just a new tool, let's play with that. What could be the use of it? What are the interesting objectives of using it? What it can be helping it for? And in a case like in my institution, having big classroom, I see a very big potential, for example, of chatbots on trying to provide some tutoring additional tutoring to the students to review some of the material. In one way. Another way would be as a brainstorming idea. Another one, running some activities where the students kind of opening their mind about discovering. We talked very recently about an environmentalist. So some of the people were talking to a chatbot, to a fake Greta Thunberg or fake Rachel Carson. That was a chatbot, but based on all the information they had, it was providing a good discussion with my students to open them and giving them more interest into their learning. So another representation of that come from Microsoft a couple of years ago. And they mentioned where AI will be playing a role in academia. And the one that will be really the focus of today is about the teaching and learning, where AI will happen to be integrated more into the learning management. It will be coming pretty soon, I think, for what I've heard. It will help to provide more collaborative learning environments and also learning space, such as, for example, the tutoring I was just speaking about. I'll go over the collaborative learning environment in a bit. And it's preparing them for potentially future skill where they will have to be using those kind of tools. So there is definitely a market in explosion requiring those AI skill more and more. And I think it's important that we're teaching our students on how to use them instead of not considering them. So really, there is a major side as instructor to play on integrating those tools, but providing the access to all our students to make sure that we're providing an equal access to everyone. At this point, some surveys have been published. It's one of the problems of these technologies. It has gone so exponential that there is the studies being published are kind of behind on time, and all of the surveys, even if you're looking at last semester, they already look old because everything changed so fast. But it seemed that from last semester, most of the time where faculty have been using an AI was kind of for the same idea. This is mostly for courses towards writing, but they've been using most of those tools to brainstorm ideas, to help maybe providing some structure into the writing to the student, edit a couple of sentences. And then there is, of course, less activity regarding the writing part because, well, also we start entering into a potential academic integrity. And so we have to define very clear policies about what we expect to use and what to expect not to use from the student side. And that's something that we have to potentially get better, or at least be very specific. I think each assignment we're asking our students, we have to let them know if it's a Gen AI friendly assignment or a non-Gen AI assignment, or kind of a middle, and defining the use of them. In class, those tend to be very practical because you can generate some conversation. It's helping also to, just also for an instructor to brainstorm ideas, to create some activities, and to be a little bit more productive. So there are a lot of general potential of using Gen AI, not only as a student, but as everyone, as an instructor, but for any type of job. It's helping to reduce the time that we can spend at task, because you can do these brainstorming activities where maybe you want to get some couple of ideas about doing an assignment for the students, and maybe you have a couple of ideas or you don't have, and you can check for that. And you, as a conversation goes, you're just figuring out where you want to lead towards, and then personalize the tasks that you're ready to do. Of course, you could do Google for it a couple of years, not even that. A year ago, that's what I was doing, that I was spending 4 times the time and having something pretty similar, but at least it's making that going way faster. So it's kind of boosting the productivity, potentially also narrowing down the distraction, because I don't know for you, but Googling for a couple of activities, suddenly you find, I don't know, some kind of other links, and you find something very interesting, and you're moving away from your target. So this discussion with a AI tool can allow you to just keep focused on what you're doing. There are some tools that helps to do some, sorry, it's not fast and it's fast, it's accelerated the online research. So my thought is about Perplexity, which will provide you a bunch of sources that you can all check for accuracy, so it can accelerate that research. Thanks of the brainstorming capacity, the discussion part of those Gen AI, it helps to develop more creativity. There is, of course, a creation of nowadays images. You can also edit and create some audio. In terms of critical thinking, at least you can start developing some activities where maybe you might be on the lowest, I mean, kind of skipping very quickly the lower part of the Bloom taxonomy, and really ask your activity on the top part, where you ask your student to analyze and to start making sense of their knowledge. Problem solving also by providing, for example, case study. This has been kind of still, due to the lack of accuracy of some of those tools, the problem solving can be a little bit tricky sometimes. And I cannot tell you that from my accent, I'm not native English, and so it has helped me improving my writing and communication, in particular when I have to send an email. It's very practical just to have that corrected on my email and making sure that everything's fine. Tend to be very wordy, so I will personalize after, but it's a pretty good tool. And then after, it helps also through the development of more activities. Since we have potentially more time to develop activities, we can focus on developing more dynamic, equitable, and engaging learning environments, such as something like that, which is, as you could guess, an image created by, I think that was by Dolly at this point, where I asked to create an engaging learning environment for ESS. And so that was the result coming from that, using, I forgot to mention, generative AI. So it can provide pretty good ideas. On the student side, some application that can be directly linked to the use of generative AI is first enhancing the teaching material, such as the students are taking notes. Most of them now take notes on their computer, but otherwise they can translate that into a computer, and they can get those lecture notes simplified in case they are too dense. They can summarize the notes, they can create mind maps, or they can create maybe a bullet point notes if they want, a kernel type of notes, and they can help creating through the imaging process, creating some visual aids. That is something that will be coming, I'm pretty sure. Our students tend to be very hungry about study guides. Well, those tools can provide them study guides by providing them the lecture notes. Of course, with all that being said, I'm always thinking that our student and inter recommendation should, of course, evaluate critical thinking their outcome, not taking it as if, but making sure that what's coming out of those tools are fine, and checking that potentially with the instructor that's needed, but always being a step back on not taking that for just a pure solution. Another way, still on the learning part, is they can have, through the development of the use of those tools as tutoring, they can receive some guidance and learn more about some concept. I can see at least here, some of the students are afraid or shy to come to office hours. For those students, it has been a difficult way to kind of motivate them to come to office hours. So have been since last semester offering an AI tutor that some of them have been using instead, or at least in complement to, and they mentioned that it was pretty useful. In case you allow that for any assignment you're creating, you can allow your students to have a double check by, for example, AI to see for any potential feedback. They can make practice question out of their notes to see if they understood carefully the material. So that's been a pretty good way to personalize the learning and taking into account any kind of student. It's really an equity tool at this point. In terms of research and creation, as we mentioned already, it's a pretty good brainstorming tool. It helps structuring an outline or outline some essays. Of course, again, with being careful of not writing the essays. Can do the same for presentation. And some tools tend to be a little bit better to suggest research sources, but still with the idea of the students should be the ones then looking at the resources and see if they are useful for them, not letting the tool doing it for them. And finally, one last topic I've been recently looking into more details is organization and time management. I've created recently for one of my class a chatbot just to create for my students to create a daily schedule, at least to give them an idea. I don't expect them to be using that every day, but to provide them kind of an idea of how they can make maybe the daily schedule a little bit better. And it has been pretty successful at this point. So it helps moving around maybe the time to study, prioritizing something different, setting reminders and so on. So this is something that can be also quite useful. However, there is some challenges in using those tools, and I'll kind of listed all the one I thought about. The prompt, you have to be careful on how you're prompting, because you might not have the best results. Some people also think that you just ask a question such as in a Yahoo or Google search and you will have your answer, but no, it's a kind of discussion happening. There is the issue of over-relying, thinking that what's coming as an outcome is the truth, in some way is the best answer. You have to be careful about what's going on and making sure that while you're checking your source, there is a problem regarding data privacy, very similar to social network. That's what I'm telling my students. I mean, as soon as you're going into those tools, you have to be careful about the information that you're entering. And that's why on my side, I feel a little bit restrained to ask my student to connect to any ChatGPT, Bing, Bard, or any other ones because of that data privacy. Another issue is about integrity. I think when we speak about ChatGPT or AI to any instructor, one of the first words that may come into mind is about cheating, the risk of cheating. And we, I think, have to switch from this negative state of mind to a more positive, more optimistic, contrastic, I'm sorry for the word, but a more positive way of thinking that our students can grow from that and not seeing only the dark part of it. I just remember being a student, and I mean, cheating at that time was also something. We had different way of cheating, if at least accessible, and you were the one decided of yes or not going. And our students are in the same kind of situation. So instead of seeing our student as potential cheater, we should see them as potential citizen taking the good solution or the good action, and we can help on guiding on that. One part I will be talking a bit is about motivating reluctant learners. And I saw that, I was surprised, I saw it in my students as I saw it with my peers. Some of my colleagues, of course, feel afraid about this AI tool in general, or they think it's too complicated. And very similar, in similar ways, I've interviewed about 20 students last semester, and I had a big portion of those students showing the same kind of apprehension regarding AI and not going easily into it. We have the impression that because they are young, they are technology friendly, that they will be using it quite a lot. And it seems that at least we have a big portion of our students who tend to be reluctant, who don't really want to make the step, or sometimes are afraid that by using those tools, we will consider them potential cheater. And finally, one issue is the equity, the fact that because we're all different, we have different income, we're coming from different backgrounds, we may not have access to these tools. But what we can see, I mean, a solution would be some state had decided to do that, and I think they can buy from it. We could ban AI, but some research and some surveys mostly have been showing that students won't be stopping to use AI anyway. This graph shows you that the difference between spring and fall between 2 semesters. What we can see is a very slight increase of students using AI from one semester to the other. It's not as big, so as you can see, it's going from, example, from 46% at this point to 50%. So we start seeing an increasing of students, but it's not a big explosion. But the tendency is even, and it was being said there, even if the institution would ban AI, those students will keep using it. So it is not a solution. And we know it. Every time in history we ban something, we were in fact creating a black market behind and pushing people to get more interested into it. So it's not the solution. Another problem we have is a potential divide, the AI divide, the fact that we have some students, but also some people that have a hard time to make the step towards using those tools, either because of not having access to it, maybe because of lack of internet, or maybe you need to pay for something like to pay a subscription to be using it, or at least that's what they think. They may have access access, but they don't understand it, and they may think that it's too difficult to use. Otherwise, they have access, they understand how it works, but they don't think it's useful, or they don't think it can bring them anything. And finally, they don't, it's kind of the other way, they don't see how to integrate that into their life in some way. And so for all of those four questions, in some way, if we want to promote, or if we want to use mostly those AI tools in our teaching, we have to to fill up this gap and to make sure that we address those questions to our students. The why we should be using it, in which purpose, what it will bring them at this point. And so we have to answer those questions to, well, for our students to make the jump and to want at least to try. If we look at the problem of reluctant learners, I was trying to summarize the different barriers more that goes against learning. Sometimes it's a lack of time. It can be a lack of interest or curiosity, lack of confidence, not feeling able to learn something new, a risk of failure. I don't want to learn it because I'm sure I will fail that, not being in the correct state of mind or emotion, and finally, not having the knowledge behind. If we look at our students, we need to know the type of audience that we're addressing. And so instead of focusing on the tool, which tool we want to use is for what purpose I want to use that for my audience, and what is my audience? What are my students, and where are they regarding that? And in general, I would say most of those skills apply to a student, except that we might be just getting rid of the time because they are full. Most of our students tend to be at least having a big portion of the day focusing on studying. And so we can get rid of the time and just focusing on those parts, trying to raise their curiosity and their confidence maybe in using a tool, making sure that if they're using it, they won't be having any risk of failure, just providing the support. I mean, the mind emotion comes with providing a good learning experience, and the knowledge, making sure that when we're using it, again, it's just a tool, it's not a goal. So we need to provide them the condition, the situation, and the why in some way to use it. So it's kind of going back into providing first a good student-centered learning, kind of providing the environment in the classroom to make every student feel okay, to feel comfortable to go over this task. So it's kind of going back to the essential of providing, potentially using those tools to apply the learning to real world fact, to support some of the feedback as we saw before, to change potentially the learning style delivery. Right now, I'm just doing kind of a very boring lecture, but maybe by the notes, you can turn toward that into a mind map, or you might be able to develop another type of audio through those kind of tools. You can improve more positive relationship. And by the use of AI, not only for the students, but also from the instructor, we can provide a more student-centered learning through the brainstorming, through idea that we may have. We might be able to check that with such tool as Bard or ChatGPT, and see maybe other ideas to develop more communication, develop more collaboration between our students in the classroom. So we have an idea, and we can see how we can develop an activity thanks to these tools. And so by doing that, by raising the students' interest, connecting our learning or their learning to their life, making sense of what they're learning, providing life objectives, all of those are in fact ways we promote good, supportive, equity, friendly environment to our students. We provide them the optimal learning environment. So at this point, we can extend in some way our assignments. We can extend a little bit our tool and be trying to risk new things, such as using those generative AI as tool. And again, the realization, the building of such classroom environment, and I've seen that over last semester, I started using more and more, can be supported by the use of generative AI. It has been a big help in in creating new type of activities, in thinking about projects that I didn't think about before, because I was just conversing in some way, taking the pros I had from those conversations to create new project, to create some activities outside that I didn't think about in my class. And it promoted more interest from the students. And by raising their interest, they were more engaged in taking new challenge, new risk at this point. And I introduced a couple of things with Gen AI, and they were pretty fine with that. A couple of other surveys show that, in fact, a lot of students are fine to use Gen AI as long as they are either developed or supported by the instructor, which means that as instructor, we have to test those tools before we ask our students to use them. We have to make sure that it's corresponding to our needs, and it's also kind of trustable enough for our students to be using it. Most of the students think that at least Gen AI can contribute to their learning, but you can see some some kind of negative thought about it. And a big portion of the students who are maybe against using, thinking that AI can benefit to their learning, are concerned about the potential cheating aspect of it, or are afraid that using Gen AI means cheating. And so we have to be against clear about the expectation. We need to provide our students some guidance before we provide some tools. And there have been a lot of infographics being released about the guidance, helping our students to use it in a good way. First, always, they should be looking at the policy of the course. Ideally, each course should have an AI policy. The institution should have two, but those infographics are pretty nice and very going to the point. I use them at the beginning of my semester to let them know when to use those tools or not. And also in my course policy, I mentioned that for any type of assignment, it will be said if they can use it or not. But it's good to provide some structure to a student and say, okay, by looking at this infographic, you'll have an idea if you can use it or not, if you have any doubt. But of course, for any doubt, contact your instructor too. So that's to provide the guidance. How to integrate now the tools into the classroom. So we need to look for free resources, ideally, because I don't want my students to be paying for resources. At this point, I'm trying as much as I can to offer cost-free resource, so it doesn't. I don't want any burden for my students. Then the exposure about it. I want my students to have an easy access to the tool, that it's not difficult for them to access. So ideally, I want my tool to be integrating into my LMS. That's kind of what it means. Then I need to think about providing guidance to the use of the tool. So making sure that everything is well explained, offering extra office hours if needed, having a communication clear and open with my students. And maybe one thing that is the most time cost is about being up to date with AI tools. Since it's a field that tends to be in explosion, there are a lot of tools available. Some that appears one day, disappear the other day, and so we cannot try all of them, of course, but keeping at least just with a couple and making sure that we're following the evolution is a good way to start. And so one way on my side I have done that was by this semester creating an online module for a seminar series that they have at my institution, where it was to introduce AI to the students. So the full seminar count for about 10 hours of work, more or less, for the students. And it's really providing the basics of AI. So through some kind of readings, watching some videos, listening to a couple of episodes of podcasts. So they have a big learning aspect of on generative AI. Then providing because it's an online class, we're doing a collaborative discussion about the ethics, since a lot of students are concerned about the cheating. I have raised a couple of questions that they can just pick one and decide to talk together about. And then just some application. So at this point, those applications are students using directly a tool, a chatbot, in fact, which is integrated into the LMS I'm using, which is Canvas at this point. And so I've been using a chatbot and being able to integrate it inside of a page of my LMS, and the students don't have to register, they don't have to subscribe to anything, they don't have to pay a dime, and to provide their information to be using it. And I will be showing you what I've used in just a couple of slides. So with this one, the first one, plan your day, they just have to explain what they have for their task, and providing a couple of specific hours and what they have planned for the day. The chatbot will kind of offer as a table a timeline to do their things. And then this one, it's asking the students to copy paste their note from a lecture, trying to help them summarizing their notes, and the student have to be asking to create a quiz out of it to test, in fact, their knowledge, such as a tutor would be doing. So it's playing on the aspect of time management on one side, and on the review and personalized learning on the other side. And finally, we're just ending up with a quiz to check, I mean, mostly to see if they have some reading happening. And in the quiz, there are a couple of questions about situation about plagiarism too. So this is one way, providing the learning of that technology through a class. Another way is by providing tools inside of our courses. And so I have been talking to some colleagues that have been, for example, using Bing AI or ChatGPT into their class. The downside, at least for me, on my side, is that the students have to create an account. And I'm pretty sure a lot of students have done that over the past month, but I cannot guarantee that it's the case for all my students. And so I don't feel comfortable in forcing my students to create an account, maybe for ChatGPT, even for a free account. I'm not speaking about the buying one. And so even Claude.ai, which it seems to be more academic friendly, it's requiring an email verification. So the students still have to provide their email before receiving a code. So with those tools, on my side, I decided not yet to use them. That might change. But because there is some kind of registration and it needs kind of an external access of providing information from my students, I decided to not make this step. I would say up to now. We'll see if regulation change, and by, of course, talking with peers like in seminars, I might be aware of more information. But instead, I've looked towards into building what we call browser-based AI chatbot builder. One of the most famous one, I think, is BotPress. I've been going into it a bit, but I found it kind of very complex to be using. It seems to be, it's very like those chatbots that when you connect to Verizon, AT&T, and you start on the chat, it's very similar to that. You're clicking on a few boxes and then you're answering a couple of questions. But I found the building part of it pretty hard, complex, and time-consuming. The one I've been discovering a couple of months ago was playlab.ai. And maybe this one is more simple. You might be able to do less than BotPress, but it's way more simple as an approach. And that's one that I've been using to integrate into Canvas. Sorry, I play SCAD courses, but it's Canvas. So I don't work for them. I don't have any share on that company. It's said to be, they don't, at this point, they don't have yet a market business approach. And so the idea is by offering the instructor the way to be building some chatbot to, in fact, being used in education. So if you're interested, you can have a look at that. Again, I don't have any promotion on their side regarding that. But I've been using this platform to create, for example, my first tutor. So I'm teaching environmental science system. So our program is called ESL. That's why the name of this is ESS tutor. And so this is kind of this is a screenshot of the chat conversation with I was just faking to be a student, and so it's welcoming you. Interestingly, for example, I was thinking it would be nice to have a quick introduction saying, "Hi, sunshine," and one of my students said, "I don't like to be called like that." So in one of the update after, I just reduced it to hi, and I was like, okay, let's not try to to go against any of the mode of the students. And so it's asking the topic on which the student has some kind of issues. So I was teaching about climatology. At this point, I asked about the temperature of the planet and the insulation. And so it's starting, as you can see, the keyword of delve. It's a very chat GPT word. And so it's explaining the correlation between the temperature of the planet and the insulation, and giving you a pretty good explanation. In case it doesn't make sense, you can say no, and then it will stop. It will come with some metaphors, making some analogies more. Sorry, not metaphors, but analogies, providing you a different way of explaining the concept. And if you're ready, then it's starting to ask you a couple of questions. Those can be, it's been defined to give a couple of multiple choice, true and false, and open-ended. So I did that, and it seemed that I answered pretty good. And at this point, it's asking, it's reviewing with me all the response and asking if I still have any question. And at this point, I was trying on my command, I say that if anything looks suspicious in terms of the request, if it looks something coming from an exam or homework, because the question usually that we phrase tend to be very academic, then to not respond to that and to refer the students to academic integrity principles. And so I took a question I had from a homework and I placed it into the chatbot. And directly, the chatbot was able to see that potentially it was coming from an exam or from an assignment. And so starting to remind the student about academic integrity. However, it doesn't say, okay, I'm stopping there. Just it said, I'm not going to give you any of the answer, but let's work together on some of the concepts so you can be able to understand what you're doing. Then I would say also, and I mentioned that to my students, even though the answer could be given by the chatbot, which hasn't been the case yet, I haven't seen anyone being able to go behind that. But the AI for now, I know I've been testing ChatGPT with some calculation, it is still not very reliable. And they show you results and give you the impression that they have solved the problem. But at this point, ChatGPT and others still makes a lot of mistakes in solving problems. And so I mentioned that quite a lot to my students, that they shouldn't be considering the answer of the chatbot to be the correct one. They tend to be still with a lot of mistakes. So at this point, I'm showing you the behind the scene, which was, they have changed a little bit the chat design since, and you have a link to the Playwright.ai platform. And so it's practical in a way that you're just entering text. You're making a prompt. The other one I talked before, the bot press, this works more with cells that you have to move around and some command. So it's a little bit more tricky. What I liked about this one is you just writing down, like if you were speaking to someone. And in this case, I'm just saying, okay, you're tutoring for a college undergrad student enroll in this class that you will be asking for. You ask those questions. As soon as the students say that you understand everything, you can ask a quiz. You can do the quiz with 5 multiple choice questions through some true, false, open-ended, and so on. And if a question may come from a test or homework, then don't provide a key. Okay, just refer to academic honesty. So has been kind of practical again, because I can embed that into a page on my canvas, and my students can just go into it, click, and they are already connected. They don't have to provide any of their personal information, not like email or so. Of course, they have to be careful about not providing information in the chatbot itself, but that is kind of a recurrent thing for AI tool. And so I've been in the process of testing other chatbots based on the question from students, such as an Excel guide, the week organizer or day organizer that I've tried for the online class, a rubric maker also. The only downside maybe of that structure is you can see right here, it was said usage this month of 54%. Since this platform is at least doesn't have yet a subscription, they are limited in terms of the use of AI that you're doing, and you have the choice of the model that you want to use. So you can use ChatGPT 3.5 or 4, which is the paying one, and the same for Claude 1 or Claude 2, and I think Claude 2 is also a paying one. So if you don't want to be limited in terms of quota, you can select ChatGPT 3.5 and Claude 1, and you won't have this issue. But of course, the models are a bit not as great as the other one, but they tend to provide for general learning, they tend to provide pretty good results. And so those, yes, are the different kind of project I'm working on to see, trying to provide them, to integrate that into my class. One of the most recent one was asking my student to interview an environmentalist, as I mentioned initially in this seminar. And the only downside we had was, in fact, the internet connection. The room was not equipped well enough to have all of the students being connected to the platform, and so we had some lag. That was not an issue coming from the AI. But a good thing is, again, everyone has easy access. You don't ask them, you don't push them to provide to do some registration, and so it's the students start learning how to use it, and mostly it has especially for that one I've done in class, we were almost 260 students in the classroom, so you understand maybe also why the internet was an issue, but there was a lot of discussion. That was just in week 1, so we were just starting the class, and the students didn't know each other, and they're starting to talk a lot like I'd never seen before. So that was a pretty nice thing too, in terms of community building. And with that, I don't know if you do have any question, you have any thought about it. I'm providing a couple of resources I've used to create this this presentation. And yeah, I'm done. So I'll take any question if you do have some. Yes, Benny, feel free.
Thank you for the very nice presentation. I just have a quick question. I'm just not sure how, for example, you're using the Play Lab. How does that integrate it into Canvas? Do they have an embedded code and then you put it in the Canvas pages, or how does that work? And when you say embedded in...
I can show you. There is another question about the slide. I sent the slides to the committee, so they should be available at some point. I just sent it earlier this in midday or so. So let me see if I can. So hopefully for the slide, they should be coming soon. Let me just go. Sorry, I forgot to prepare that one. Let me just quickly connect to my course, and I'll show you how they integrate. Okay. So you just have to create a page. Let's see, where is that? Oh, let me show. So I created a page. In fact, at this point I created my assignment. And so inside of my assignment for this one, that's true, I did provide a link. And so when you create your project, such as that was this one, the environmentalist one, you have the possibility to share. And so I copied the link and placed it directly into my my activity. So when the students were clicking, they were directly going into the chatbot like that. And as you can see, it doesn't ask them any contact information, any email or so. So it's the students could directly start from that. There is then another way, which is the way I thought initially. You can create a page, and then you can copy the embed code, and then you can, in the HTML code, you can place that. I've done that for another class where I had one page which was directly showing I can show you, I think, if I found out sorry, we'll see a lot of courses, but that was my tutoring class last semester. Let's see, I need just to go into fall 23, 10. And this one was embedded inside of the page right here. This one, it's a page, and you see it's starting like that. A bit slight, I mean, very similar to the other one. And the students just I asked them to put the name of the course before they can start asking questions. And so in terms of the edits, I can show you you just copy paste the code that they gave you. See, I mean, that's the high frame, and I think that is exactly no, sorry. That's the code I have right here. If I would just place it, I think it should give you the same thing. So that's two ways. Either you refer to the site, and again, it's going directly to the site, or you can embed it into your page.
Cool, very cool. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm using Poll to create a little chatbot too, so that's another platform out there.
And the way I heard about them was through a webinar from another group, and just by contacting them, I'm sure if you're interested, they should provide you the access. You just have to fill up a Google form and explaining why you want to use it, and I've been in contact twice with the managers, and especially I was wondering if they would be going on to a subscription plan, but for now, at least it's not yet part of the plan.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other question? All right, I'll stay around.
One more question. So I have one more question. So when your student use your your chatbot, were you able to see a record of the conversation, or is that information not available to you?
That's a good point. Yes, let's see if I need to go back to this slide. In the review part, you have, in fact, I mean, I don't see who, because you don't have the information of the student, which is exactly what I like about it. I don't want to know, but you can see the interaction right here. And so, I mean, in that case, yeah, that's the group of students asked to talk with Rachel Carson. But I can look at different interaction and I can see what they have done. So in the previous one, I show you the tutoring one. I was wondering if my student would be using it for cheating. That was kind of, especially because they could use it for any class. It's not just focusing on one class. And I was reviewing a couple just to have an idea. And I mean, that, was my negative side, but I was happy to see that that was not the case.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure. That was a very good question about the review, in fact.
I have a question.
Yes, sure.
How have you encountered other faculty who are very resistant to AI and just their attitude is just, I'm not going to allow it. I don't want it, or, so how would you talk to them about the importance of having students having access to generative AI?
I would be saying that at least I'm lucky that I haven't been in touch with any of my peers like that. The only people who was maybe reluctant was because they felt like it was a big jump in terms of learning how to use it. So they were like, I need to start at some point, but I just don't have the priority yet. My first recommendation, at least, is respecting the choice of the faculty would be just to make sure to have some specific policies regarding AI within the course. In this case, it is up to the instructor to decide allowing or not allowing at all those tools, but I think it's good to mention it clearly in the syllabus of the course and also with the students maybe during the first class about the policies. And so even if that person don't want to know anything, don't want to be close to AI, then I think the easiest way would be to mention to that person, okay, mention that into your syllabus. So at least you are clear with your student, and if a student starts using it, well, it's not that student's not doing the right thing because the course say no. Then you have maybe, if you want them to persuade and change the mind of your peer, it might be a different story. It might take longer. That's what I would expect.
Yeah, our faculty are kind of all over the place with it. From those, it's just like, no, I want nothing to do with it. To the ones, it's like, my students are using it. I need to be able to be more effective in coming up with ways of either using it ethically or coming up with assignment that's going to be kind of AI resistant.
Yeah, and I don't mention anything in the presentation, but those detection tools, they are not reliable.
No.
We cannot use them. And
no.
But then we shouldn't be asking our students to write an essay and just grading an essay, because that has a big potential of them using AI and of you getting crazy of like, oh, I suspect, but I'm not sure. So as you say, you have to rethink. That's a big challenge for everyone. We have to rethink a bit our assessments.
Yeah, especially considering that ChatGPT is only a little over a year old.
I thought I was fine giving them plots and graphs to interpret. And I thought that would be at least giving me 2 or 3 years. And no, now they can upload figures and it can explain that. So it's like, no. And it's, as you say, it's just 1 year old and we're already there. So
yeah, it's kind of frightening on one aspect of how fast it has been incorporated in everything.
Exactly. But that's why I wanted to make that talk on the fact that if we show our student it can be useful, but that we open to it, I think we're also creating a good relationship with them where we may reduce, I'm not saying we can cancel, but we may reduce the risk of cheating.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Great session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.